Okay. Today we're going to start on Daf Yomi. Is that correct? Matzah, the Mishnah, Matzia Gitei Nashim Meshachurei Avadim. Thank Hashem that they're both learning Torah every day. It's supposed to be learning, we should have Beis Hamikdash. And we're learning the Uli Nishmas, Zahava Golda Bas Baruch Binyamin. And for anyone that needs a refuah shlema. Okay, so the Mishnah starts like this. Matzah Gitei Nashim. If someone finds divorce documents, Meshachurei Avadim is deeds of manumission, which are, the slaves, setting a slave free. Or daitiki, which is a will. Matana, or a gift. A shayvim, or receipts. Hariza lo yachzer, should not return them. Talking about, do not return them to the...
wrong guy.
Yeah, who's the wrong guy? Well, the recipient. If you return them to the recipient, then that would mean that he has a proof that he or she that this document was effective. Return it to the wife, that means she's divorced. If you return it to the one that's receiving the gift or receiving the will or the inheritance, that would mean, or the slave, that would mean that they're freed or they have all of it. Now, what's the reason why layach? So the Mishnah explains, Shani Aimer, because I say, or we could possibly say, that these documents were written, that we see they're written. However, but who's it called? The guy that's giving it has changed his mind. He didn't really want to give it. Just because you wrote a document doesn't mean you wanted to use it. So when you give it, you're already making it in use. Maybe the person never wanted it to be in use. He just wanted to have it, or he wrote it and he changed his mind. Okay, the Gemara now elaborates on this. It says, Taima, our concern with not, and the reason why we don't return it is the nimlach shlei litna. Nimlach means he changed his mind. He changed his mind and he reconsidered it not to give it. Amar tenu. Let's say we asked the husband, we asked the one that's giving the inheritance or giving the gift, and he says tenu, he says to give it, then nice, and then we would give it. But I feel is man meruba, even if it was lost and found after a long time. We don't know of any issue of how long it was lost for.
We discussed if there was like a get or something like lost in the market.
Right. Very good. So the Gemara now quotes the Mishnah in Gittin. It says Raminu, but we have a contradiction. I maybe get Vavarimenu. If someone brings a divorce document and he lost it, he drops it. Matzul alter. If he finds it immediately, then it's kosher. V'imlav. But if he finds it after some time, then it's going to be puzzle. And the concern is that maybe it's not the original get. You see, just because you find it and you say, hey, this is exactly the get, it doesn't mean that it's the same get. It could be that someone else with the same name lost it,
I think the only one that has a criteria, it has to be
Lishma. And that's the problem, because it needs to be Lishma. And it could be that it's someone with the same name. And the same problem is, even if it's not Lishma, the same problem is returning the other documents would be maybe it's someone with the same name.
But the other ones don't have the Lishma criteria now.
Oh, that's right. The whole problem would be the get, because even if he says, well, I think a deed of manumission, I think needs to be Lishma as well. But the other documents, you're right. You find a will that has exactly the same names and you give it to someone, should be fine because you can use a template. You don't have to have it written Lishma. It's a good point. So the contradiction here is mainly regarding the get and the deed of manumission. That over here we're saying, in the Mishnah in Bab Metzia, we're saying that if the husband would say return it, we would return it. In the Mishnah in Gittin, we say if the husband says return it, we don't return it anyway. Okay, depending on how long it was lost. Naftali, you want to ask something?
Oh,
I'm just wondering, what's the remedy? And let's say the facts were that a husband had written a get and delivered it to his wife, and now he's unavailable. He's Medina Siyam or he's Nifter. Let's say he's Medina Siyam, he can't give it again. She's now almost like she's like an aguna. You don't
Right.
return the get to her.
Right. Right. I think at the end of this Gemara, it may lessen the ability to possibly the broadness of how possible this is. I think is going to get more narrow.
Well, I guess all of this that we're talking about now are rabbinic exceptions to the biblical requirement of a Shabbos Aveda. Is that correct?
Yeah. But the question is, Hashavas Aveda means you return it to the owner, and here we don't know. You're right. If we should be returning it to who we think is the owner.
In a normal circumstance, you'd think, okay, if it could be the husband, it could be the ex-husband, it could be the ex-wife, so give it to one of them at least.
Right.
But here the rabbis are saying, no, don't do that.
Right. I didn't view that as the side of the sugya. I didn't view that as what's the issue at hand. Is Hashavas Aveda this or Hashavas Aveda that? I was learning this as what are the possible concerns that could come up in a document that we need to be concerned of. And it was more like, do we suspect that it was paid? Do we suspect that there's two people with the same? Do we suspect that there's two cities? Do we suspect that there's two witnesses with the same? You know, was it paid up? Did they make this a fake thing? Did they do that? That seemed to be like what the Gemara here is discussing mainly. But yeah, there is an issue over here is that we are trying to return a document, and yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So we have a contradiction. So Gemara answers a contradiction. I'm a Rabbah. Rabbah gives a teretz. Our Mishnah says you would return it. Our Mishnah doesn't say really you return it. Our Mishnah says that you don't return it because of this and that, which would mean that if there wasn't an issue, then we would return it. Right? It implies that we would return it. But we have a clear Mishnah in Gittin that says that you don't return it. So I'm a Rabbah like Kasha Kam Makom Shashiyas Mitzuyas Kam Makom Shena Shiyas Mitzuyas. It depends how many people frequent this area. If a lot of people frequent this area, then we would say that you don't return it because we have a concern that maybe it fell from someone else. Yeah, and you see a lot of times if someone is using a pencil, you know, they use mechanical pencils. So someone's using a pencil. Someone says, that's my pencil. He says, how do you know it's yours? He says, because I lost mine. And it looks exactly the same. He said, so what? We bought it in the same store. What's the problem? What's the thing? So no, but I'm telling you, it's mine because I left it here last night. And says, but I brought it from my room. It was in my pocket. There's no, it can't be. It has to be mine. It has to. So we see a get. They said, this is exactly the get. So how do you know it's exactly the get? There are other people here. It says, yeah, but it says Yosef ben Shimon in it. It says, okay, there were two. Okay, 1 second. I'm jumping ahead. It says, if people don't frequent there, then that's what we're talking about in our Mishnah, where you can return it, even if it was after a long time, because we're not concerned that it fell from someone else. How many people were there already? Then the Gemara goes on and explains Rabbah. It adds in an extra detail that Rabbah didn't say. It says, and even in those cases where there's a lot of people there, and therefore we have to be concerned that maybe we shouldn't be returning it. But that would only be an issue if you have two people in the city with the same name. Yeah. Remember, Rabbi, I don't remember which one, but Rabbi Herschel Schechter went by the Rebbe, and the Rebbe started to talk to him about something. And he says, that's the other Herschel Schechter. Shnei Yosef ben Shimon's Be'erachas. That's he quoted like this term. There's two Yosef ben Shimons. Yeah. So,
What about the handwriting? People had, these are all documents written by hand, right? Wouldn't you be able to tell who wrote it?
it was
Just
written
by the
by,
handwriting?
it was a cipher. I don't know if everyone wrote. It would recognize the handwriting of the cipher. That's
Yeah.
why, yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily mean, yeah, the cipher wrote it and the witnesses would sign it. Yeah, we'll see in a moment what the witnesses can do. You know, if the witnesses can participate in this. But actually, I'll see on the next page that possibly Rabbi Yirmiyah mentions that we can ask the witnesses. But right here, we're just looking at a document that's that if there's two flaws to it, one is that it was lost and there were a lot of people around. That's one flaw. Second flaw is that there's multiple people with the same name. So then you don't return it. But if there's only one flaw, if there's no flaws, then you return it. Even if it was a long time. That's what we're learning from Rabbah. Because if you don't add in this extra detail, kasha de Rabbah, then we're going to have a contradiction with what Rabbah said here. Basically, what Rabbah said here is that if there's a lot of people that frequent that area, then you can't return it. We have a problem. It says, and as if we don't add in the detail of v'husha huchsaku, as long as you don't have two people with the same name. If you have two people with the same name, then you don't return it. But, I'm sorry. If there's a lot of people frequent here, you can't return it. But you can return it even if a lot of people frequent there. If you don't have two people with the same name. So there's two criteria to make you not return it. If we don't say this, then we're gonna have a question. Rabba and Rabba, do gita deshtachach beidina de Rav Huna. There was a get that was found by the best in of Rav Huna. Rav Huna was Rosh Hashiva for many years, maybe 40 years or something after Rav. It says the Havikasav Bay B'Shvirei Masa Dal Rachas Nara. It was written on it on Shvirei Masa, the city of Shvirei, which is on the Rachas River. They wouldn't write city names. They would write on the river. Over here, they are writing the city name. They're writing the city name, but the way they put the location is on the water. What water it was next to. In Miami, they write Al Kaif Yama, which is by the ocean.
People know more about the waters of the city.
No, because the waters didn't change as frequently as if we would just write the city, then it could be confusing. It'd be like Salem. I think we discussed how many Salems there are. Or Portland. There's a bunch of Portlands and a bunch of Salems.
In those states, there's like Miami. That's what you know.
Oh yeah, there's another Miami. I think there's a Jerusalem, Rhode Island, and a Bethlehem somewhere. Is it Bethlehem, New Hampshire or something?
Pennsylvania.
Okay, so the question goes like this: if we don't give this answer, it's found in Beidina de Rav Huna, and over there it says B'Shvir Masna Rachsna. Rav Huna says on top of 18b, we're concerned about two cities with the same name. This is like that Helm story. Shlemiel, whatever, he's walking from Helm to somewhere else, and when he went to sleep, he would face his shoes in the direction because he's in the woods, in the direction that he wants to walk the next day. But robbers came by in the middle of the night while he was sleeping and tried to take his shoes, but then they just left him. But they left him facing the wrong way. So when he woke up in the morning, he ended up walking back to Helm, thought he was on his way to Warsaw. But he sees exactly the same city like this, and this is his house exactly, and his wife. And he said there's Helm A and there's Helm B. There's two. And exactly the Shlemiel that was walking from there ended up, Okay. So, multiverse. So, okay, V'amalei Rav Chisda l'Rabba, Rav Chisda says to Rabba, you should look into this, because the L'urta this evening, Ravuna is going to ask you, what's the halacha? That's interesting that Ravuna would ask Rabba. Well, nafak dak va'ashkach. Rabba went out and he found the Tanan. It says in the Mishnah, Kol Ma'aseh Bezdin Reza Yatsa, that any act of the Bezdin, anything that's been validated, verified in Bezdin, so then you could return it. Now the problem is like this: Rabba just paskin that this get that was found could be returned. Now, where was it found? It was found in a place where a lot of people frequent, because it was in the court. A lot of people come into the court, so they have metal detectors now. So, and the kapashat Rabba the Yasser Rabba says you return it. Alma, so we're going to need another difference, because Rabba said that if there's a lot of people frequent there, you don't return it. And now here Rabba says that you do return it. So there must be one more criteria that Rabba has, and that is, do we say that are there two people with the same name? And if you have two people with the same name, that's when you don't return it when a lot of people frequent there. But if you have only one of these criteria, either you have two people with the same name, or you only, but not a lot of people frequent, or you have a lot of people frequent, but not two people with the same name, you can still return it. Okay. That's our proof that there's one more criteria to what Rabba said. Ovid Rabba Uvda, there was a get that was found. Big Kisna is the house of flax. It must have been a flax factory, a linen factory, and they found the get over there, and Rabba returned it. Ikadamri, some say it was the part of the flax factory where they sold the flax, and so that means there's a lot of people there. And the reason why he returned it was because we didn't have two people with the same name in that city. Or I'm sorry, what happened? Even though there's frequent caravans, which just means there's a lot of people there. Those that learned this differently, they didn't say it was where they sold the flax. It was the Toru Kisna, where they soaked the flax. When they soak the flax, it stinks. Yeah, the people don't go there. It's like the fish market. You only go there if you need to go there. So Afagav the Huxaku, and even though you can have a lot of people, even though you're not a lot of people, you don't have a lot of people, even though you have established in that city that there's two people with the same name, and the reason why you could still return it is because we don't have a lot of people that frequent there because it smells.
There are some markets that don't let in customers. I don't know how they need to buy something.
No, they're only if they're like signed up to buy that. Yeah, like Costco has that. Yeah.
You mentioned metal detectors.
Yeah, in the courthouses.
So use the cameras.
Have to see who dropped it.
Yeah, so even if they have the same names, you have
Right.
3 Mary Smiths.
That's right.
Sarah.
That's right. The cameras could help. Good point. Reb Zera, Rami, Masnisa, and Abraisa, Mashani. Reb Zera has a similar question to Rabba, but instead of from a Mishnah and a Mishnah, he has a Mishnah and a Braisa, or a Braisa and a Mishnah. And he answers it similarly. It says, Tanan, he learned in the Mishnah, maybe get Vavarimenu. Someone brings a get and he drops it. Matzal alter, if he finds it right away, this is the Mishnah and Gittin kosher. Then it's kosher. But if he finds it after a while, then it's puzzle. Ramini, but we have a contradiction to that. The word Ramina means to throw. We throw something opposing it. Rummy, right? Rummy cup, cube. You throw cube. Yeah, but it means you throw dice. Right? Kaba is a dice and Rummy is to throw. like Aramaic word. So Raminu, he poses this contradiction. Matzah get the Isha B'Shuk. Someone finds a divorce document. This is a brisa. If someone finds this divorce document in the marketplace, if the husband agrees that he gave it, then Yachsalisha, then you could give it to the woman to keep. Ain't a balmaida, but if the husband doesn't agree, then then you don't return it to anyone. Ketani miyas. Nevertheless, we taught that we will return it to the woman, even if a lot of time has elapsed. Since it's fallen, we'll still return it. Now, we said before, the Mishnah in Gittin, that if a lot of time has passed by, then you don't return it. And here we say that you do return it. So it's a contradiction. We didn't say actually that you return it, but we assume that you return it because it says return it, and we didn't tell us that you don't if there's a lot of time, right? Should have been more careful. When you say the word return, that means you don't ask any questions and you return it. Say don't return, that could be different. But so Mashani Rab Zera answers Kan b'makam shasheres mitzuyas, Kan b'makam shena sheres mitzuyas. Exactly the teretz of Rabbah. Depends. If there's a lot of people that frequent there, then you don't return it, and if there are not people that frequent there, then you return it.
There's no expiration date on it. Doesn't say used before.
No.
That's why we have this.
It's supposed to be used on the same day. We'll see machlekes coming up. If a get is written earlier and then given later, what's the rights of the husband during that time? We'll see soon. Oh yeah. That's what was it called? Get Yash. Is that what it's called? Get Yash.
Smart.
Get smart. Get smart. Okay, Ikada Amri. Some say when does Reb Zera say that you don't return it? When there's a lot of people that frequent there, that's only if there's also established in that place two people with the same name. That's exactly what we said according to Rabbah, because in order to answer Rabbah, we have to say the same thing, that there was that only if there's established two people with the same name, we won't return it. Ikadamri, that those that say even if we don't have two people with the same name, we even if we haven't established that there's two people with the same name, we still won't return it if there's a lot of people that frequent there. And the Plika de Rabbah, and he argues on Rabbah. We don't know. We don't know if this is a machlekes Rabbah and Reb Zera or not. Getting close to Purim, so Rabbah and Reb Zera. Remember, they had the Purim meal together.
Oh, is that right?
Can't rely on
Yeah.
miracle.
Rabbi, what exactly does it mean to establish that there are two people with the same name? Like that there are enough people that, like statistically, there would be.
No, I think it means that we look in the phone book and we actually have two Ailey Smiths in the phone book.
Oh, but then that would be easy to find out. You just go.
One Elise. No, but that's.
I'm sorry.
But then it would be so easy to figure out, right? You just go to those people and say, okay, did you write this get? Are you still married? Oh, I'm not even married. Like, right? It would be so easy
Right.
to
But
find out.
we're talking about over here where we have two people that are married, their wives are the same name, and the husband's name is the same. Yosef ben Shimon is married to Rachel ben, I don't know, Bas. Right, Rachel Bas Avram.
But there's no duty to investigate and say, okay, are you planning on getting divorced? No, I'm like 80 years old. I don't know. Like it just seems like very easy to.
I think they're worried about the third one that we don't know about.
Oh, got it.
You mean once there's two, you think maybe there's a third?
What's the problem with 80?
I'm not sure if we trust which one.
Poor rank is 82, his wife's 30 years younger, and a foot taller. It's 30 years. It's 80.
80 is the new 20.
Some guys.
Okay. If there's three, then there's more. So we'll see soon about checking this out and how much we suspect. Let's see. It says Ikadam. Okay, so some say that there's a machlekes Rabbah and Reb Zera, and some say that there's no machlekes. There's two ways of learning Reb Zera. Does he have that extra criteria that Rabbah added in, that we added in for Rabbah actually? It makes sense, the fact that Rabba didn't say exactly the way Rab Zera posed this contradiction, because what Rabba did was he asked from one Mishnah onto another Mishnah. I have a Mishnah above Metzia that says that you don't return it because we suspect that maybe he didn't want to give it. But if he would tell us that we do give it, that it should be given, then we would return it. Sounds like even if a lot of time has elapsed. But Metzia tells me that you do return it. And the Mishnah in Gittin says that you don't return it if a lot of time has elapsed. We answered it that it depends on how many people frequent there, if there's caravans. Okay, now that was a contradiction that Rabbah had. And Rab Zera had a similar contradiction, which was a Brisa and the Mishnah in Masechtas Gittin. So Rabbah didn't ask like Rab Zera because he'd rather ask from a Mishnah on a Mishnah, not from a Mishnah on a Brisa. We say that maybe Rebbe doesn't accept that Brisa. Rab Zera, my time, but why didn't Rab Zera ask the question from a Mishnah on a Mishnah like Rabbah did? Those are much stronger. Amalach. So Rab Zera would say to you, Mika Tani ha'amartinu naistin afilus man meruba. The Mishnah never said what Rabbah is implying from it. We're saying that the reason why you don't return a divorce document is because maybe he wrote it but didn't want to give it. But if he would say, we're implying from that, but if he would say to give it, then we would give it. But the Mishnah never said that. Maybe we could imply that we do give it, yes, if he says, but only if it's immediate, not after a lot of time.
Does he have to rewrite it because it's not Lishma? I'm not sure. Hello, discussed.
Again, it has to be done Lishma.
Does he have to rewrite it regardless?
Well, if it's the same get, then it's kosher.
No, okay.
But if he finds it right away, then that's fine.
I don't
But
get it. He said there are 5 Eli Smiths in the phone books. But only one of them is married to Natasha.
Oh, so that would be that wouldn't be this case. That wouldn't be this case. They would need you would need
Both of
them. Both wives need to be the same.
Right.
Yeah.
So how do you find that?
Oh, you would if you knew that
Really?
those phone books that had the wife as well. They only had one phone, so.
That's from Moscow. It's in the,
So with the home phones, they only had one phone, so they.
the name Natasha.
Okay. One of our options here was that there's a machlekes Rabba and Rab Zera, and the machlekes was according to Rabba, you need 2 criteria that would stop you from returning it. Right? And according to Rab Zera, 1 criteria was enough. Even if it just had a caravans frequent there, already you don't return it. Now, so what is the machlekes? What is the machlekes based on? Rabba Savar Diktani, Rabba understood because it taught Kol Ma'aseh Bezdin or Yachzer. Anything that's from Bezdin, you have to return. You return it. It means anything that's validated in Bezdin. And Rabba understood. We're talking about where it was lost in Bezdin and it was found in Bezdin. So Bezdin, Kamakam Shasheres Mitzvahs, and Bezdin has a lot of people that frequent there. That's the Bezdin. And so when would we not return it? Because there's a lot of people frequent it. We said that if there's a lot of people that frequent it, you don't return it. And here we said it's found in Bezdin that you do return it. So it must be that a lot of people frequent there has one more criteria, and that is that we know or we've established that there's 2 people with the same name here. That's when you don't return it. But if you don't have established that there's more than 1 person with the same name, if you don't have that established, then yachzer, then you could return it. Rab Zera would say to you, no. Mik tani kol ma'aseh bezdin shenimtzu bebezdin. Does it say any act of Bezdin, which means any document that's validated that was found in Bezdin? Doesn't say that. It says Kol Ma'aseh Bezdin Yachzer. It says any validated document, any certified document you return. Doesn't mean that it was found in Bezdin. Maybe it was lost outside where no one goes. Maybe it was found by the was lost by where they soaked the flax. Doesn't say that it was found in Besdin. That was Rabbah was saying that. Reb Zera says no, it doesn't say that. How do you know it was lost in a place where there's a lot of people that frequent? Really was found outside. Okay. Reb Yirmiyah has another possibility. He says, "Kagain the Ka'amri Eidim May Olam Lechasamna I'll get Echad Shel Yosef ben Shimon." Reb Yirmiyah says, this Reb Daniel was mentioning something like this. We can go to the witnesses and we can say, how many gittin did you sign that said Yosef ben Shimon? They only signed one, so then this is it. The Gemara says, if that's the case, that the reason why you're not returning it is because the witnesses told us that they only signed one document. So why do we? This is not a chiddush. The witnesses tell us that there's only one document like this, so then there's no chiddush here. It says no, there is a chiddush. Could have thought that maybe I suspect that they have one person with the same name that's married to the same woman, a woman with the same name. And not only that, but I have also two witnesses, they're exactly the same names.
Right.
Two witnesses with the same names.
Sign on the witnesses.
Maybe I would have thought, even though I asked witnesses, did you sign another document? They said no. But maybe I should be concerned that maybe just because you asked Reuven and Shimon, but maybe there's another Reuven and Shimon.
Signed it up for the same name people.
Yes. And the Mendy and the Golem, they had a basketball team. They were called the Globe Schleppers.
Oh.
They said, why do you take that name? They said, all the good names were taken. The Globe Schleppers. So, yeah.
Most
They say,
ruins in Rhode Island.
Moshe, you're in Rhode Island? You're going to Rhode Island. Or you were. You're going now to Rhode Island. To Providence? To Newport? Warwick? Cranston?
Guessing now?
I'm guessing, yeah. Okay. So maybe I could have thought that there's witnesses also with the same name. We said no, we're not concerned about that. That's already too far-fetched. Ravashi says, going the Ka'amar, Nekav Yesh Tzadais Plainus. You have another answer. You could say, we had this contradiction. We could say that where do we say that you return it? That's because the person says, the shliach, I guess, says that there's a hole that's right next to Eis Plainus, this and this letter. The Dafka B'tzadais Plainus, only if he says where the hole is. Aval Nekav Ba'alma, but if he just says there's a hole in the document, that's meaningless because a lot of doc paper back then had holes in it. Whatever they used, parchment would have holes. It didn't spread perfectly, and there was holes here and there. But if you say that where exactly the hole is next to the shin that's on top of the thing, and so then that would be. Today, what they do is they take a pin and they actually put a hole on top of one of the letters, and then when they write the document, when they're sending a divorce document by mail, so they say to make sure that we know that this is the same document. We say there's a hole on the top of letter shin on the word or whatever on this and this word. Yeah.
Moshe told me they would say Torahs when they that's how they call the Sefer Torah.
Also with the little
Each
pinhole.
one they saw it, this says pinholes over the following words.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
You do that?
By us in the best, and he would make a upside down segel.
Again, what?
3 holes on top of one of the letters.
So it makes
An
it
upside down
segel.
segel. Yeah.
Only put
When witnesses
different shaped
sign-
letters, pinholes on the fold, on the seam.
You make it on the seam. Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Otherwise, Ganovim put Torahs over a light table. They see it.
Wow.
Where does he put it?
On the seam.
The seam next to a certain row.
Yeah.
That's where they get them on no seams.
I read in Samarkand. Did anyone read Samarkand?
Yeah.
Yeah. So in there, they had this thing that anyone that left Russia could take out one Sefer Torah. And in the Moscow shul, they had piles of Sifrei Torah. Like, because when they closed all the shuls, they took all the Sifrei Torah and they just piled them up in there. They didn't have the Atzei Chaim there. So he took, for his family, he took a bunch. And he took more than, so what he did was he sewed 2 Torahs together. And then he just rolled it up. And so he had for braces and then and he rolled it up. And when he came to the border, they said, open up the scroll. I want to see what's inside. They opened it up. He was nervous, but they just wanted to see if things were, were wrapped inside. They didn't know if it said B'zei Sabracha and then braces afterwards. They didn't know the size of what it was supposed to be. So he got, each of them took out 2. They took out 4 together.
Go out. 5 coats on the road.
5 coats, right? Okay, so Mekabal Malaya, just the whole would be nothing. Ravashi Masafkali, Ravashi had a question. Simonim Ider Raisi Derabana. The reason why Ravashi says that there needs to have a hole is because he has a doubt if Simonim, when you have a sign, is that enough? Is that that even with something that's an Issa Daraisa will rely on a sign? That's this question. Like how much is the sign? Now, if it would be, everyone would agree that that an absolute sign like that, where it's a nekev, that's a siman muvak, everyone would agree that you can use a sign like that. But if other sign, just a regular hole somewhere on the document, that's Ravashi had a doubt if you want to use that as a sign. Rabba Bar Chana, Irkes Legita Be Midrasha. He was a shliach to bring a get, and he dropped it in the base medrash. Amar, yeah, we're on top of your tests. Amar, this is actually today's daf.
Yeah.
Good, no? Isiman esli begave, tviasein esli begave. It says, if you want, I have a sign on it, and if you want, I also recognize it. Tviaseina is a recognition that you can't exactly say what it is. That it's not a siman that you could say. It's just I recognize that it's mine. So Adruan Ali, they gave it back. Amar, he said, I don't know if they returned it because simana, there's a sign on it, and they hold that simanim are deraisa, that if there's a sign, you could rely on that even for a biblical law. Or it's because I recognize it. Now, I think when someone recognizes something, that's better than a sign, because he has things that he can't explain, like when you put on a jacket and it feels comfortable, so you know that it's yours. They say, how do you know it's yours? I know it's mine. I feel it. But the problem is that no one else knows that you're saying the truth. By the siman, before they show it to you, say, okay, give me a siman. Give me a siman. You have to say, well, there's a scratch on the thing and whatever.
Yeah.
So that is easier to verify, but it's not as accurate. But the Tviyaseina is more accurate, but less easy to verify. So Rabbi here was saying, I don't know which one is the stronger one, but V'daf Ketzuv Merabanan, you would only rely on Tviyaseina, which is a recognition. That's only if it's someone that's assumed that he doesn't lie. Ketzuv Merabanan, someone from the yeshiva student. But a regular person, not. You remember the 3 things that a Ketzuv Merabanan doesn't lie.
This is your time. It's
You
your
did it?
moment.
Yeah.
What are
Let's
they?
go, Shaul.
What he learned, and I don't know.
Yeah. There's 3 things that a Tzuvah Merabanan is allowed to say different. Allowed to say different. What he learned, and his host, right? Otherwise, he would never lie. For you. Oh, and with when he was with his wife. Yeah, he would. Those are the only things he would be allowed to change the truth. Okay.
With his wife.
Who is this?
He would change the truth. It says it's a server merabanan. I think that was the expression. Server merabanan, which is a yeshiva student, that you can return him a document. You can return him an aveda even though he doesn't have a sign, just by him saying that, I recognize it. Okay. The pencil, that's right. Oh, maybe that's what the pencil is. I recognize the pencil. Right. Okay, Gufa. Let's go a little further. One we mentioned before that if he finds a divorce document in the market, when the husband admits or agrees that it should be returned, then then you return it. If the husband doesn't agree, then then you don't return it. Okay. When the husband agrees that it should be returned, then you could return it. As a question, but we could suspect maybe he wrote the get 6 months ago in Nisan, wanted to write the get. But he really didn't divorce her until Tishrei. Now, so what? What's the problem? The problem is that the husband that has rights to his wife's property that she brought in, he has the payers. He went and he sold fruits in those 6 months, in between Nisan and Tishrei. He sold the fruits. The Kasab Nisan. Now she's going to take the get that was written in Nisan. She's going to say, my husband sold that. He wasn't allowed to sell it. He divorced me 6 months ago. He was selling things that weren't his. And she's going to take back the things that the husband sold. He had no rights to sell it.
It sounds like what the case we just had with the Donna in the field, that they never entitled to the payers. I'm sorry, she's not entitled to payers.
So take a look at this. Yeah. Okay, so 1 second. If you say that once he decided to divorce her, so then the husband doesn't get any fruits anymore anyway. So now when she goes to the purchaser and says that he wasn't allowed to sell it, she's actually right that he wasn't allowed to sell it. And when she confiscates or takes back the sold item, she's actually doing so rightfully, because the husband wasn't allowed to sell it because he had decided to divorce her because he wrote the document. We're talking about where they weren't together since the document was in. But according to the opinion that says that the husband really does have the rights to the fruits until he gives the get. And so therefore, the husband sold, it was actually a good sale. Now the wife is just the one that's making all of this up, and she's going to extract, and it's not accurate, it's not correct what she's doing. So how could you trust the get like that? How do we know, just because he's saying to give it, how do we know that you don't have a secondary problem here, that maybe the date in it is wrong and someone's going to take away from the, yeah. So we have a simple answer. When she goes to the purchaser and says that my husband sold produce that really belongs to me, he's going to say, if you want to take money from me, I want to know when you received the get. Get the witnesses that say when the get was delivered, not when it was written. 1 second. No one ever came up with this solution before by the Shtar Chayv. We had a whole Mishnah about promissory notes, and you came up with a problem that maybe it was written before and it wasn't borrowed, and we had all these problems. We could say, bring proof when the money was actually given. If you can say over here, bring proof that when it was delivered, that's when I'll return the items. So we should say the same thing over here. We had the Mishnah before. Said if someone finds promissory notes, if there is guarantees of property in it, then you can't return it. And we said, we established it's talking about when Shimon says that I actually owe the money. You can return it to Ruvain and you can use it to collect. And we show him, but nevertheless, we didn't want to return it to Ruvain because maybe he wrote the document in Nisan, didn't lend him the money until Tishrei, and then he was going to extract property from Levi, even though the money was never lent. And Hasam Nami Lahadar, but what's the problem? We could have said the same answer that we said here, that we should answer when he comes to Levi to take it away. Prove it to me when you got this document. Maybe Shimon had written it earlier, and he only gave it to you 6 months later.
Documents needed for date. At that time, they didn't put a date for the signature. They did today.
They did put a date.
Top of the
They
document,
signed
but when
it.
They signed it. They had the
But that's
document
not
signed
the
before
date
as well.
necessarily
Yeah,
goes
the
into
document was
effect.
signed as well by the date. Right, the document was signed. And there was a date on it, but he didn't borrow yet. He just had it prepared with the.
By
the
a get, you
Amru.
don't have to have witnesses on
By
the
the get,
delivery of the get.
You do. By the get, you have witnesses by the delivery. It's machlekes, what's the main ones, but yeah, you have witnesses by delivery, and that's why he's saying, I want to know when you received the get, and that was a great solution, because
But
that's the
by
only time.
contract, you don't need.
So, okay, so that's the Gemara is going to answer something like that. Says Amri hachagabi get isha asi lekech v'tava. By the divorce document, the purchaser is going to claim from the woman, show me, bring me proof when you received it. Amar hayda juan ale rabbanan legita mishum bleitagen v'teisiv hasidika asi lemitrav teisel v'teisirayim es matigit liyada. The Lakech can say like the Lakech can say like this. I know that your divorce document fell and it was given back to you. Why was it given? Why was it given to you? Because they gave it to you because they want you to be able to get married. Right. For her benefit. But it wasn't given to you in order for you to extract property from me. It was given to you for there's a much bigger reason why it was given to you. So therefore, to extract property, I'm asking you for one other proof, which is bring witnesses when you received it. But by the shtar chayiv, why would they give it the document to the person? There's only one reason to give it to the creditor is to be able to collect money, to extract property. That's why he has it. So there's no other reason why the person was given it. So you can't say bring proof that when you received the document. Yeah, Reb Daniel has a better answer. That's who says that there's witnesses that say when the document was received, when the loan actually took place. The lekech can't claim from the fact that they returned it to you. That was for a different reason. Because it's obvious why they returned it. Lemitraf was lemitrafu in order to extract property. So Shmamina Kamar Rabbanan B'mil say, obviously they've established that in Makami Dimat Tishtar Liyadeh. And before I bought this property, you already had the start. Yeah.
What was Daniel's comment, please?
He said that when a divorce is given, there's witnesses there that see the divorce given. Besides the witnesses on the document, but by a promissory note, they write the promissory note, and then it's possible that he went ahead later. He didn't use it right away. And he went afterwards. He borrowed 6 months later. He decides to borrow the money, and he hands him the promissory note. Not necessarily would there be witnesses when that transfer was taking place.
In all fairness, this would mean. We were reviewing the document.
Isn't there? Didn't we talk about yesterday about there being witnesses, like at the time of this promissory note given, and also the time of payment?
Tell me again.
If there was witnesses at the time of the promissory note, there also needed witnesses at the time of repayment.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
But it's not like necessary for there to be
Witnesses at the time when the loan takes place. Maybe the promissory note itself was enough. It's not it's the document that requires the witness. We have witnesses that he's indebted to him this money, but not necessarily do we know exactly the date when the transfer of the money took place. Right, that's our concern now. Maybe there's no witnesses there.
So the witnesses were there when the document was written, but not when it was.
Possibly, that's what Daniel is saying. And from the Gemara didn't mention that. I'm looking if Taisva says something. Okay. Let's take a look. One more Gemara. We'll get closer to where we're supposed to be. Documents, deeds of manumission. Taner Rabbanan. Started in the Brisa. Matzah shtar shechur b'shuk. You find deeds of manumission in the marketplace. Bisman sharav maida. That means the slave, freeing a slave. If the master agrees, then yachsel evet. Then you return it to the slave. Ein arav maida. But if the master doesn't agree, then la yachsel leilzeh v'leilzeh. Then you don't return it. Now the Gemara, it says, if the master agrees, you return it. Why do you return it? Maybe he didn't give him the document right away. Gave him the document 6 months later. The slave went and bought property. In between those 6 months. The master went, took the property from the slave, and he sold it. Okay, now, what happens now is that the slave goes and he has a document that says that he was free during the time when the master sold it. He's going to extract it from the purchaser, and it's not right. It's not rightfully so, because he was really not freed until he received it 6 months later. So, but the Gemara says, if we say that he's free anyway, because how does a slave get freed? You can do something not in the presence of the recipient if it's to his benefit. If we say that it's the benefit of a slave to be free, it's machlokes. If it's the benefit of a slave to be free. If you say that it's to his betterment to free him, and the witnesses that sign on the document are the one as how he gets free. It's not how when it comes into his hand. It's when the witnesses signed it. So then he was already free anyway. So the fact that he's now coming to the purchasers and taking it away, that's rightfully so that he's supposed to be taking it away, because the master had no rights to sell it. It wasn't the master's. He was already free. He didn't have the document yet, but he was free. But
what is for the slave's benefit? Does the slave don't say that?
Does the slave want to be free? Sometimes the slave would rather be with his okay. But if you say that it's to his detriment to be free, then how are you going to answer this? How are you going to answer this? Because he really wasn't free, and he's going to make believe he was free, and he's going to, because he has a document that says he was, but even though he really wasn't. So the Gemara answers because when you come to the guy and you say, we come to the purchaser and you say that I'm taking this property away, the purchaser will tell the slave, will say, bring me a proof when you got the document. Bring the witnesses that say when you got the document. According to this opinion that they only freed when we receive the document, then you would need witnesses there. Then you prove it, just like we said by the divorce. Bring proof that when you received the actual divorce. Okay, let's leave it over here.
Where do we stop?
And where are you leaving it?
Right before.